So this is Denny. He's going to be 12 soon. He's an old man. He's disgusting. Did he stop? Anyway, if he'll sit down nicely. Sit down, buddy. Sit. Hi everyone, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. So, this is my wrap-up for July. I can't remember what month it is. This is my wrap-up for July. As you can tell, July just kind of flew by for me. There was a lot going on. You know, we finally were starting to get back out there in terms of seeing people and seeing friends. We took my kids out on a day trip one day. It was a lot of fun. My book also came back from my editor, my first book in my space opera trilogy, so I'm just working on a final read before sending it to the proofreader. Am I sick of reading it? Kind of, but not really. You know, it's a weird feeling because you're like, oh, I have to read it again, but then you're like, but I like reading it. Anyway, it's other indie authors will understand, or other authors, traditional published authors too, will understand the feeling of kind of just wanting it to be done, but also, you know, still enjoying the process. I got my new tattoo. Can you see it? Of course you can see it. Isn't it gorgeous? So if you're in the Toronto area and you like this style, Pam at Wildfire Punch is the artist. What is the tattoo about? So I really love the desert and I really love the ocean. Like, I am obsessed with both of these kind of landscapes and vistas and visiting these two things. So obviously the water is because of the ocean, and then this is, you know, a stylistic depiction of Red Rock Canyon in Arizona, which is the kind of desert I like. I like more of a dirt desert than like a sand desert. So it's also kind of funny because my partner always calls me binary. He says that, you know, I do things either like one way or the other. There's not really a gray for me. So it's kind of a joke as well because desert and sea, you know, the two kind of extremes. So yeah, this is my beautiful tattoo and I absolutely love it. And it also suits my style. It's quite out and in your face, and I'm kind of out in your face. We interrupt this wrap-up to bring in some exciting news. Sorry, I'm a dork. That's not the news. My news is that my book, What Branches Grow, made it through the slush pile for the self-published science fiction competition. So the SPSFC is in its first year and was created by Hugh, Howey, you know, the author of Wool. Anyway, my darling debut novel is in the running. So I guess it was the top 300 out of the submissions. I mean, I don't know. That's better than nothing. Do I think it will win? I mean, I hope it does, but I recognize that it's long, and it's the homage element of the tropes might not resonate with some people, but you know what? It's gratifying that at least it made the contest. And then next year, you know, if they do it again, you can bet I'm submitting Escape and First Contact, and then the year after that, it would be really fun to be a judge. I mean, hopefully I have enough subscribers then that would be, you know, that I would get into that. Anyway, there's my life's plans for you all for the next 3 years, I guess. Exciting stuff. Yeah, so sorry for interrupting, but I'm very excited about my baby. So back to books. I read 8 books in July. That's pretty good. The first book that I read in July was Mirror Friend, Mirror Foe by George Takei. You can check out my review of this classic sci-fi in my classic sci-fi list. It was rather humdrum. It had some interesting kind of technological aspects to it, but honestly, it wasn't that much to write home about. Honestly, the best thing about it was that George Takei, you know, was involved in writing it. The next book I did was a single book review of the book Interfaces by P. Anilak, which is this hard cerebral sci-fi. I did this review as part of a book tour of that book, so you can check that out in my single book reviews list. I also read Ensnared by Tiffany Roberts, which... Wait. I didn't post the video. So I was gonna post the video, but I did the Loki book tag instead because I was really excited about that. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So I mean, I only really read this kind of as a joke, as it's a romance. What? I read a romance about this woman who falls for a weird spider alien. That's why I read it. Anyway, should I even post a review? Yeah, it's pretty funny. You know what? I'm gonna release it as a bonus on Monday or something next week. So expect that. Just wait in anticipation for Ensnared, my review. The next book I read was called Sha'kert, End of Night by Ishmael A. Soledad. This book I received as an ebook to review from the website Whispering Stories, where I'm a guest reviewer. Whispering Stories is an indie book review website and gives reviews to indie books. My book is reviewed on there as well. So, and I've been reviewing for them for a couple of years. Anyway, Sha'kert is a slow burn but fascinating story about making a life where you find yourself. It's a contemplative, speculative science fiction. So the story follows Greg and Louise, who are exiles from Earth after engaging in criminal activity to pay for life-saving treatment for their terminally ill daughter. So they're ordered to accept permanent posting on some backwater planet with a group of Amish settlers. And these Amish are intending on creating a new community for themselves free of the technology that's encroaching on their lands back on Earth. For those who are concerned, like trigger-wise, the plot surrounding the child's illness is not a large part of the story at all, and the book contains no scenes of a child in distress. I was kind of worried about that because I have 2 young kids, but actually that it was a completely palatable approach to it, and it's not a big part of the story. So you feel comforted in that. So the book is kind of part New World cultivation and part First Contact. It's a slow-paced and methodical story, but it's very contemplative. It's not tedious. I was drawn into the characters' journey, and the planet upon which they settle is very interesting. The 3 main characters are not entirely likable, but they're very realistic. No one acts hyperbolically or out of character. Greg, the kind of main character, is a bit pompous, but his story is the most relatable of the bunch, at least for me, because he does not prescribe to the Amish or Mennonite religion or culture, so he's very frustrated with their approach to a lot of things, and that was relatable, but the Amish aren't vilified, and neither is Greg, and I thought that was a really good balance. I wish we got a lot more flashbacks, though, about his life and his wife's life growing up in the futuristic society as really like a small part of this, and I could have used a lot more detail on the world itself before they left to kind of understand why they were leaving, really, other than the criminal part of it. As I mentioned, the novel also features an interesting collection of side characters for a sci-fi novel, which is the Amish. I don't profess to be an expert on the religion or the culture, but there are Mennonite communities in my region to the extent that if I drive maybe 20 minutes from my house, I will see, hitching posts at Home Depot. You see them driving on You see their carriages driving down the road, and you can see all their farms if I go and visit my cousins. If you know the show Letterkenny, if you've heard of that show, my cousins are basically Letterkenny, so I know a lot about them. Anyway, I also have some relatives who are part of the modern denomination of Mennonite, so I know a bit more, I think, than the average person who doesn't know anything about Amish or Mennonite people. So from that, I found the aspects of their society to be realistic and accurate. They're neither lauded for their steadfastness towards being Luddite, nor are they vilified for it. It's an interesting take because it's not an attack on their values or culture, which I thought was fair, because it's not, because that just, it wouldn't, as well as being inappropriate, it wouldn't have been interesting if it had just been like a takedown of, the way that they live. So this is not an action-packed novel, but there's a lot to keep you interested in reading. They're just like small mysteries, and people that enjoy new planet colonization will enjoy it very much, I think. Unfortunately for me, the last 15-20% of the novel drops off considerably. I wasn't sure what the overall theme or intention of those final chapters were. But up to that point, the novel was entrancing and really interesting, and I really liked the approach to how humans interact with technology and how far people are willing to go to preserve their culture. I thought it was a really well done and thoughtful novel, and I do recommend it. I don't know about the title, though. The title doesn't really say much about the book. I wish it had been titled differently, because I'm not fond of made-up words in titles, because they don't do a lot for the reader, because you don't really know what to expect from the title. I mean, the first book here, for example, The Road. This title is perfect because it's literally the road to death. Well, and they're on a road. This title is perfect. You kind of know what you're getting into. Another example. Here we go. Doom, knee deep in the dead. I have all 4 of these books. One day, so my plan, maybe next year, is I'm going to read all 4 of them, and I'm going to give a review of them, because we'll see what these are all about. So I gave this novel a 4 out of 5 stars, and I recommend it to anyone who likes, Earth or planet colonization novels. The next book I read was Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. Apologies if I said that wrong. This was a novella that came out in 2015. So, I had a bit of trouble with this. So, it has an artfully created world and interesting technology, and it approaches themes of culture and colonization in a nuanced way. So, I guess what is Binti for people that don't know? So, Binti, the person, is the first of the Himba people to be offered a place at this university, which is off world. But to accept this means she has to kind of give up her place in her family and travel to this other planet among people that don't share her ways or respect her culture or her customs. So she also has to, on her journey, kind of contend with the threat of these aliens called the Medus, who are at war with the rest of the galaxy. So Binti is a young woman, she's venturing away from home, not just into a new world, but into a world that kind of looks down on her culture traditions. One of these is coating her body and hair and cleansing herself in this way using this mixture of clay and oil. This was actually an interesting aspect as a side note. So my partner and I watched this show called Dicing with Death. It's about people that have these crazy, terrible commutes. It actually is, it's a documentary. It's really fascinating and really interesting. And one episode shows an African tribe utilizing a similar ritual. So I kind of understood what this was from that show. I don't know if it's based on the exact same culture. Probably not. I'm assuming there's more than one, tribe that does this. All that aside, I enjoyed the balance Binti has to make to keep her traditions and to learn to inhabit a world, where she's seen to be somewhat odd. It's also nice to see a protagonist who wasn't the typical sci-fi hero regarding race and culture, aka like a white dude. So while the description of how it feels to be in Binti's position is well executed and evokes empathy, I wanted more of Binti herself. Like, while we already know she's a strong-willed and determined young woman, such that her decisions and actions make sense in the story, I wanted more of her youth and her life in the hometown because I didn't really understand what she was leaving behind. I was like, oh yeah, she's just leaving her family, like, so what? I don't know. One thing I really enjoyed was the critique of colonization. So the reason for the Medu's attack in the end is definitely a comment on the colonization of African people and British and American cultural appropriation. That's not a very big leap to make, and I'm pretty sure that was the intention. I thought that was well done and was poignant and it is impactful. Yet, despite this stuff, the good stuff of the story, I found the actual story itself was pretty wanting in terms of interest. The plot is so light, and I didn't really care for the Deus Ex Machina aspect of the Adan item that Binti has. Had we been given more backstory about this Adan rather than just something she found in the desert, I think it would have worked more for me. But because it's just something she happens to have, it just felt like Deus Ex. It really did. And, while I understand the symbolic aspect of the clay paste and how it functions in the story, aside from being just Binti's cultural tradition, it also felt too coincidental. Like, Binti just happens to have these two important things to the story in her possession. Like, if the intent behind the story is to say that we can learn a lot from cultures that are seen to be uncivilized, it was very heavy-handed in that regard to the point of being clumsy. And one thing that really confused me, okay, this is a spoiler, so jump to this part to skip the spoiler because it's a big spoiler. So, the treatment of the Medus at the end, I did not understand at all. I mean, sure, they got their stolen property back and the war is over, I guess, but what about the deaths of all the students on the ship? Like, we have the concept of war crimes in our society for a reason. Had Binti been on a military ship and those people had all been slaughtered, that might have made a way more sense to me, but she was on a peaceful vessel that was attacked without provocation. And then the government is just like, okay, here's your stuff. Oh, and oh yeah, one of your people can study at our university after you guys murdered a bunch of our students. That made absolutely no sense to me. As a parent, if one of my children had been on that spaceship, there's no way I would have just accepted this lying down. Like, there's no way in hell. So it made absolutely no sense to me. Anyway, I suppose the biggest issue with this story is that it suffers from novella syndrome. It had such potential to be a fascinating and poignant work of Afrofuturism, but the plot points felt rushed and I was left so frustrated, I don't know. I have to give it a 3 out of 5 stars because the story just wasn't there. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. I know that I'm part of a Discord group and we talked about this for the book club that we were part of, and there was some kind of back and forth about this concept, so this is just how I feel about it. Anyway. The next book I read was Shift by Hugh Howey, Wool Part 2, or whatever. More like Wool, the prequel. I'm going to to give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I really wasn't feeling it. I'm still going to read book 3 because it's part of the book club thing. I hopefully will get to it this month, but we'll see. I mean, I'm doing it early in September. Either way, I'm going to do a review of all 3 books in September, the end of September. And hopefully book 3, you know, is at least a 4 to even it out. Because right now I got a 5 and I got a 3, so let's see. The next book I read via Audible, so it was an audiobook, was Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill. You can find my review of that awesome book in my single book reviews feed. I really loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5. The next book that I read was Maleficent 7 by Cameron Johnston, which is a grimdark fantasy. I got it as an e-arc from NetGalley. I dropped that review on Tuesday, so check it out in my feed. It was really, really fun. The last book that I read was The Amazons of Somelon, which is a classic sci-fi by Raymond Kaminski, which still haunts me because it's absolutely vile. I'm going to be discussing it. Yeah, I'm going to be discussing this on the 12th. Be prepared for a rant of epic proportions. This book is messed up. It's one of the most gruesome, not even gruesome, just like gross books I've ever read. Yeah, and I've read some gross stuff. But yeah, definitely that one. Anyway, I'm currently reading a memoir called Empire and listening to Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez. So those 2 reviews, I'm probably just going to do the memoir called Empire review in my wrap-up, but I'm definitely going to do a single book review of Chilling Effect because I really like it. I'm also going to be going on vacation the last week of August, so you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be blasting through this stack of books right here. This is my vacation stack. Yeah, I'm going to read them all on the beach. It'll be fun. What else? Let's see. Do you have Instagram? If you do, follow me on Instagram because I post a lot of bookish pictures. It's easy to find me. It's just T.S. Buyer. It's also linked in my about stuff on this channel. I love Instagram. It's funny. I started Instagram kind of because they say as an indie author, you should have a social media platform. So I started that mainly for that reason, and I find I really love it. I love taking bookish photos. I'm part of this Bookish Bounds group where we post, you know, every week we post something. I post 3 or 4 times a week. I do classic sci-fi pictures on Thursdays. I do like stacks and stuff on Tuesdays, and then Saturdays I do kind of my current reads. And I also post other stuff too, like I don't know, me paddleboarding. Sometimes I post pictures of my children and my dogs. Exciting stuff. Anyway, but mainly it's just books. So yeah, follow me on Instagram and I will follow you back. Even if your, you know, Instagram is just pictures of beers that you drink. Because actually I like that too. So yeah, anyway. I hope you enjoy your August and hit that subscribe button to get notified when my next video comes out. You know you're going to want to watch the Ensnared one or the one about the Amazons of Somelon. Thanks for watching.